Hey, folks, welcome, Julie Fulkerson. Hi.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
This is fun. I haven't done this for a while.
It's 100% Humboldt.
Okay.
Which you are, right?
I had a couple of little breaks, but I was born here.
Tell us your story.
Oh, really?
Your born story, up to age 15 only.
Well, I usually talk about that I was really fortunate to have been born here. I think of all the possible places, in the world.
Right.
It's just I did once a count of the sperm and egg and square footage of the planet and what the odds are that anyone would be born right where they are.
Right.
It's, ridiculous. The odds are so slim. And so I feel really grateful that I was born here and that I had the family that I had and that specifically the elementary school education I had, which I think really formed my whole life.
So Arcata?
Mm-hmm.
Trinity Hospital?
I was born in Trinity Hospital, but it was not the one that everybody thinks of. It was right in Arcata, and I think now
Where the annex was?
Now it's faux. No, what the annex was after I was born. I'm so old.
Oh.
I was born in what was once Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Right, the faux corner.
And then now faux.
Yeah.
And it burned, I think. And I had my tonsils out in Trinity Hospital.
That was a hospital on that corner where...
Oh, apparently.
I remember the KFC, even that goes back a little ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my roots are here. I'll just dip back a generation. My father was born in Bullwinkle.
Wow.
In a lumber camp, and his mother and father both worked in the camp.
And Bullwinkle's Elk River?
It's
Or
Cranell. Mm-hmm.
Cranell.
And he was just a real oddball. He played the piano and found a piano, and just the story goes on from there where he ended up going away to college, and he became a pianist and a conductor and a musician, and that was his whole world. And he met my mother from Pasadena and Carmel. So this merger happened between the two of them, between this very urban sort of city rarefied world with a backwater of Humboldt County. And she gave that up to live in Arcata, which at the time was a 14-hour drive to San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
Just to remind everybody that times have really changed.
And the highways were small. Mm-hmm. And the cars were big.
There was that 2-lane road all the way.
That was terrible.
Yeah.
I remember even coming up in 78, the roads were terrible. Mm-hmm. So his folks were lumber people?
Yes. His father cut down trees, and his mother was a cook. I have her cookbook with things like 32 cups of sugar and 40 cups of flour and so on and so forth.
A really big batch of pancakes.
She was cooking in the woods in a tent.
Wow.
And very resourceful and very practical. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I have all of those roots of sort of practicality and also frugality. Mm-hmm. And I was also born during the Depression. So I'm concerned about how resources are spent.
I have you like 52 or 3.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much.
No, okay.
No.
We lived right by Cranell. We lived right up above on Dows Prairie, and we would go take the kids on bike rides down to like by Al Babbich's farm there. Now Matt owns it, I think. And could never really get too far beyond the gate because Simpson, had armed guards, you shall not pass.
Well, it was a complete village with a school and a church and a town hall and all the little houses like Scotia, or not as big as Scotia, but like that model. And then they removed everything. There's nothing there now, as I understand it.
That's gone. When did they do that? 70s, 60s?
It's been a while. Don't ask me any linear questions.
Yeah.
Terrible memory.
Don't linear. We won't do linear today.
Don't do linear with me.
I guess they did the same thing for folk, right, out in Elk River. Mm-hmm. That was still up when I was living here.
Yeah.
But they just vandals and trouble and liability.
No, I think that's what happened in Cranell, which is sad because it could have been a village. I mean, people would love to live there now. It's right near the ocean.
Beautiful out there.
Right off Clam Beach.
Oh, man, that'd be super private.
And the river. Perfect.
Yeah. Our neighbors had a view of that whole valley. They were right next door, and they faced kind of north toward Clam Beach and Little River Beach, and magical. So tell me about Dad. Where did he go to school?
Well, he ended up going to Arcata High after Cranell, and one story that I love about him is because he was a really good pianist at an early age. By the time he was 12, he could pretty much play anything he'd heard. So he played all those great old ballads from the 20s and 30s, and a bunch of old geezers from Eureka who were musicians talked his mother into letting him come to Eureka. They would drive out there, pick him up, bring him to Old Town.
Wow.
And they played in clubs in Old Town. And he was so young, they made him face the piano the entire time.
Right.
He had to pee in a jar. He
Wow.
could not leave the piano because he was the one person who kept the whole thing going all night. And these
Wow.
other guys would take breaks, but he couldn't. And he made so much money, his mother let him do it. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't a lot of money, but it was better than what she was making in
Right.
as a cook. So he had a rough and tumble beginning, and then it all.
Old Town would have been a tough and rough and tumble everything.
Oh, there
then.
were some wild stories. When my mother got here, she used to go with him to dance gigs in Hoopaw and had some wild stories to tell.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
The lumber day.
Yep.
Oh. So where did he go to college to meet your mom?
San Jose State.
Oh, how about that?
And the story is he looked across the orchestra and saw this cute girl and
There she
said,
is.
she's the one.
Wow.
And she gave up her trajectory to other parts of the country as a cellist and moved up here and had me. And then she never acted like she was stuck here. And she did a good job of making sure that we left often. She had been playing in the Carmel Bach Festival. And so we did go fairly, well, we went every summer for that.
And she played?
And she played. And then my father played also and conducted. And then she somehow just made sure we left every now and then. And in those days, I mean, this was really an isolated place.
So leaving was a production.
It was a big deal.
It's not 5.5 hours to the city back in that day.
Yeah. And it was 14.
Whoa.
And of course, I just rode in the back seat and listened to junky radio. You could barely hear it. And it was always kind of sound most of the time.
For the radio stations between Leggett and Garberville.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, there isn't any.
Yeah. But, it was a really good childhood, and I feel like I was really fortunate. And I went to college elementary school. And what I like to remind people of even now is in that school, we were not graded. We were encouraged to work together, to solve problems together. We sat at tables together. Something like cheating didn't exist because if you weren't tested, you didn't have to, figure out how to get ahead of anybody. You just were working on it together. And if you didn't know the answer, you'd ask somebody else, or you'd go to the library or look in a book. And
so this is at Humboldt State College.
that was, the building is still there.
Yeah.
And it's been turned into something else.
How many grades did you go through this school?
There were 8 grades. And I missed one. My father had a sabbatical and went to Manhattan to study at Juilliard when I was in 2nd grade, and I stayed with relatives that
There's
year.
a Manhattan picture over here. You can't see it.
Yep, it's a great picture.
Yeah, it is nice. It's cool because Nick is cool. Hi, Nick. So I love it. I have a similar experience when I came to Humboldt. We went through a program called Cluster.
Oh, right.
Yeah, first year, it lasted 2 or 3 more years. No tests, no grades. A couple of rules. You got to show up. You got to participate. You got to speak. You got to jump in. And best GE I've ever gotten, 48 units in 3 quarters. It's like, it was magical. And I wonder if that's a little bit of that carryover, that progressive education ethos.
You took the words out of my mouth. I'm sure it was, because it was, I didn't know. I was a kid. I was in school. I didn't realize what other schools were like until I went to Arcata High. And all of a sudden, we had to have hall passes. If you had to go to the bathroom, you had to ask permission. And you sat in rows, and you got grades and tests and red marks on your paper. And I was like, whoa, what happened? This is not a world I know.
What happened in my world?
But also between my 8th grade, last grade, 8th grade, my father had another sabbatical, and we went to Vienna for a year.
Wow.
So at the time, of course, I was horrified. I thought I was going to be a freshman at Arcata High. It was really exciting to think that I would go to Arcata High with all the other kids. And instead, we went to a foreign country where I didn't speak a word of the language.
Dumb old Vienna.
Yep, I
wants to
know.
go
Isn't
there?
that something? No kidding. And the best part, actually, for the starter, is we took the Greyhound bus from Eureka, to New York.
Oh, no. It took 8 days.
At least. It was day and night.
Wow.
And so that was the first launching of that trip.
Is it just for money or because there was flights?
Oh, because my parents didn't spend money.
Okay.
He was a teacher and there wasn't much money, and they were just really frugal and smart with their money. So
That's how
then
people were.
when we got to New York, we got on a boat, and then we spent another 10 or 12 days on the Atlantic.
Wow.
And in what my father called steerage, because we had the cheapest room that had no porthole. And so we were down below the waterline for 12 days. We would get up on deck. It wasn't, but as a kid, this was all an adventure. The bus was an adventure. The boat was an adventure.
Yeah.
And at first I was sort of sad that I wouldn't be with my friends and, would miss that year of school. But then I got to Vienna and I was just a lot on my own because my parents were really busy with music and they had to do something with me. I had to go somewhere every day. So they enrolled me in a dance program, ballet classes at the Schönbrunn Palace.
Wow.
Where I went 6 days a week, all day long, and took just dance classes.
All day.
It was crazy. Because in Europe at the time, and probably still somewhat true, that once you get past your basic education, then you decide or it's determined what direction you could go. So some people become plumbers or road workers or teachers or dancers or musicians. And I didn't speak German. So I guess they figured this was the best alternative for me.
Mostly nonverbal dance.
Yeah, well, and the teacher spoke, French and Russian, and it didn't matter, because most of it's movement anyway.
Right.
So I got 1 unit of PE for doing about 45 hours a week of exercise.
Check the box.
And then I had books and assignments that I did more or less throughout the year so that I would be able to start as a sophomore when I got back.
Wow.
So that was pretty innovative.
Pretty safe city?
Oh, heavens,
to move around in?
Oh, yeah. Vienna?
Yeah.
It still is.
Probably still is, yeah.
No, and I was 12, and I don't remember exactly how I figured this out, but from our apartment, which, by the way, was bombed out still from World War II, the back half of it the front half was trashed, and we lived in the back. And I would take a bus, then the subway, then a streetcar to the Schönbrunn Palace, which was way on the outskirts. So as a kid, I was able to figure that out because the system is so smart.
Yeah.
There's signs and timetables, and you can figure it out even if you don't speak German.
It's Europe, yeah.
Yeah, it's Europe.
That's what I'm told. We're going to the Netherlands, and I'm told just the trains are just self-explanatory.
You have no trouble at all. Plus, everybody speaks English.
Right. We're hoping to go over the German border and see a couple of villages that are that border the Netherlands, and maybe get down to Belgium.
Oh, you'll have a great time.
Bergen?
Bergen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fun.
Well, any village in Europe is a treat because you get to see what it's like when people live clustered together. So they save the agricultural land, which of course influenced me when I was back here and involved with land use planning. Is how smart that is.
Right. Because you served, we'll get to that, but you served on Board of Supervisors. Were you not mayor of Arcata for twice?
No, I don't know, just once, I think.
Just once?
I don't know. Don't ask me any specifics. I was there for 8 years.
We're not doing linear today.
And I think we might have I probably was mayor for 2 different times.
Okay.
And then I was on the Trinidad City Council, largely because Trinidad's so small and everybody has to be on the council sometime. You just kind of rotate in and out.
All 15 people.
Yeah, it's getting smaller.
Get a turn. It's like a military duty.
Yep.
Tell me, after you got back, you went back to Arcata High? Mm-hmm. Boy, culture shock again. It
was a big shock, and I think I never caught up socially. I think I always felt like I was an outsider. I mean, I sort of did. I'm pretty good at fitting in and pretending that I'm okay, but it was...
Aren't we all?
Pretty. I mean, I guess I did realize even at the time that what high school does is teaches you to follow the rules and to know that there are going to be expectations outside of your own.
Right.
You have to show up on time and stay, like a job.
The bell rings.
And the bells. That was probably one of the most annoying
There's bells
things.
Everywhere around here.
And I wasn't used to that, and I got used to that. And I learned how to play by the rules. And I stayed in the lines because I didn't want to be in trouble. And I wanted to graduate.
You weren't the stoner girl. You weren't the bad kid.
No, and just for a little check here, because you're a lot younger, is when I was in high school, I was not aware of anybody smoking pot. It was only in many years later at a reunion, 2 of the boys in my class who were then, old men said, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me. We were growing in our basements." I had no idea.
Good for you.
Not a clue.
Well, you don't need to know. Yeah.
No, I didn't need to know.
So in San Diego, where we went to high school, it was what could you get away with within the rules?
Oh.
So we played a different game of how you could get off campus at lunch and get back and be slick about it. And
I'm sure there was some of that, but I'm just saying.
Don't look too stoned, please.
I wasn't one of those people. As I say, I didn't like to be in trouble. I still don't.
That's good. So you mentioned something that's interesting idea that we all kind of feel like an outsider in some circles. We're the imposter, we're the poser, some fake version of ourselves, just to kind of accommodate, I don't know whatever need the group heard, and I guess that's a useful tool, and we can. I could pretend like I'm a podcast host today. Hey, how you doing, everybody? It's me, and I have a map of Humboldt and an iWatch.
I don't think that's really it, because you're not really pretending to be a podcaster.
No,
you are a podcaster.
I look for the authentic me and try to be that all the time.
Yeah.
But I think we find ourselves in situations where I'm going, these are not my people. What am I doing here in this room of money or prestige? Or I found myself at a restaurant in Eureka going, I'm a fish out of water here. What am I doing here? And less so, but there's still those moments where I guess you figure it out, and I'm still 11 or 12 inside the 63-year-old body and want to be acceptable, and hey, high five.
Well, we learn certain social skills. I'm sure I've learned a lot. And, when I was campaigning, that was probably the toughest time. But I think what we both have in common is we're curious people. I am fascinated by what people think. So in a campaign, all I had to do in those days was to say to people as I went door to door, what do you think about Arcata?
Wow.
What do you like about this place, and what would you change? I didn't ask anybody what they didn't like, because that's an obvious dark hole where people can complain about everything. But I wanted to find out what they thought were the strengths and what ideas they had for new possibilities. And that's a trick that works really well anywhere.
Be curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm the first one to say I don't have the answers. That goes back to my elementary school. It's like, well, we got together and figured out the solutions. And to me, that's actually an asset.
Yeah.
Because assuming you know everything is really dangerous.
Really bad.
It's much better to think you don't know and find out and experiment and then adjust. Ask more questions.
Yeah.
It's a cycle.
So we have a saying in our family, get curious. Let's get curious. And we smile because we know it's a kind of a byword, and we actually mean it. So these guys on TV, well, let's get curious. Let's find out what happened here, and ask Mr. Google, and he'll have some perspective. And so we were in Medford over the weekend at a Mexican restaurant, and the guy had a T-shirt that said, Copenhagen 1995, big bold letters. Googled it. It got curious. And what it was there was this street uprising of homeless, and the government clash. And it was a really big kind of a deal for them as a country. And they went to war basically, and the government won again, and they settled out of court or whatever they did. But I thought, I'm learning to be curious.
That's great.
Yeah, and about things I don't like or agree, or people I don't agree with. Joni and I are encouraging one another. Let's find out.
I love that it didn't have to do with a sports competition.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what a lot of shirts are about, beer and
I'm curious about
football.
Your Heineken shirt.
Yeah.
Did you know I'm going to the Netherlands to see Heineken?
Well, there you are.
And Anne Frank.
Oh, my God. What a combination.
Anyway, so what happened after Arcata High? Did you go to Humboldt?
I did. My mother had my parents were really amazing. I mean, even though they were both professional musicians, they never pushed that on me or anything else.
Wow.
And so I just had a lot of choices, which on one hand is kind of dangerous because, then you have to make decisions for yourself. So by the time I got to Humboldt, I had no idea what I was going to be when I grew up. And at my age, girls were supposed to be a stewardess, not a flight attendant, a stewardess, a teacher, a nurse, or a wife, or a secretary. There were really very few choices, and none of those appealed to me. I didn't want to be a teacher because both my parents were, and I thought I should do something different. So when I went to school, It's funny, I was thinking about this morning. I wanted to get a little head start. So in my summer before school, I took poli-sci, philosophy, and something I've completely forgotten. Oh, economics.
Huh.
Because I thought these are 3 tough subjects and I want to get them out of the way so I have more room for electives. And then when I went to Humboldt, I don't know if this is so true anymore, but do you remember this? You had to take, well, you were in cluster, so it was a little different. But when I went to school, I had to take a class in every single discipline to graduate.
Plus electives.
Yes.
There's the bucket
and your
over
major
here.
and your minor.
Yeah.
So as a student, I took debate. I took things that would never occur to me.
It's called liberal arts.
Yes, exactly. Why would I take debate or speech or theater or art? Those are just things that were, or physics.
Who wants to talk?
No kidding. But then you know what? You survive.
Mm-hmm.
And then along the way, I decided for some crazy reason, probably because of that year in Vienna, I focused on German because it seemed the most challenging to me, and French and music and English. And then literally, this is so strange, the year I was supposed to graduate and I had to have a major, they came up with something called a group major, which is similar to what you were doing.
Kind of write your own ticket, right?
So I ended up with this cluster major, a group major, and then graduated.
So you had the units to do it with.
Yeah, because I had plenty of units.
Did you have to tie it in to appeal to the
they just
approval?
weren't 80% in science or math or history or anything, really. A lot of English.
Lugs are here. We're going to leave this, but your dad has a building named Fulkerson Recital Hall, right?
He does.
Is that okay to mention that?
It's okay to mention it. He hated that.
He did.
No, and I've inherited that.
They named the Hammond Trail after me. It's amazing.
Are you serious?
Totally,
they
right
did
here.
Not.
Nope, it runs from McKinleyville.
I know
the
that trail
goes all the way up there.
Great.
Hammond Trail, great-great-grandfather Jedediah Hammond.
Are you serious?
He ran LP.
You're not making this up.
Total bullshit.
Okay. Oh, that's a good story then.
So, as soon as I go off on that in front of Jody or the kids, they go,
He's going to tell that again.
No, you got it, Dad. And she'll just start shaking her head. I go, don't ruin it for me. This is an amazing story. Anyway, so none of it true.
No, my
Hammond
father's,
lumber.
Yeah, see, my father's thing was, it was embarrassing to him because he taught with all kinds of really good teachers and had astounding students. And he thought, well, this is crazy. Why name something after one person? And I think of that a lot now. What is that old Redwood Highway now is called Drury Bypass or something?
Yeah.
Does anybody know who Drury is? I mean, his family does.
It's probably a ranger.
But for somebody who's driving through here or comes to see, it's like it would be much better to just have some natural name. Yeah. And I just remembered, I argued, this is my first vote on the Arcata City Council, was to vote against naming the ponds after the professors at Humboldt.
Oh, because Frank Klopp is one of them, right?
Mm-hmm. They were all wonderful people.
Was he a professor or was he a city?
No, he was a public works director.
Yeah. But there still is Franklin Klopp, right?
Yeah. And the rest were all professors, and they did good work.
Sure.
But a lot of people worked on that process.
Did they pull the names off then?
No, they did not. I was only one vote.
Okay.
And they're still there. But I thought, names for native people or environmental names or plants or birds or fish or anything that would have sort of an educational value that would reach out for generations would have been my preference.
Or relevance across
but I lost that battle.
Yeah, yeah.
And so things continue to be named after people that we forget. So I've made it very clear to my friends and loved ones, I don't want anything named after me, not even a bench.
Not even a bench?
No, no benches.
We were talking at lunch. Moose Matthews has the rest area in 299. I go, he must have been amazing. He goes, no, he bought it. I go, oh, there's a relevant legacy.
I think a moose rest is a good idea.
A moose?
That would make sense to people.
If we only had some. So what's your position today? What have you, let's talk about the timeline. What have you done? So you've been city council person, you've been a supervisor, you've done plaza design, retail. Did you teach? Also music?
Well, yeah, when I finally got that degree, then I thought, oh, now what do I do with this? So I took a year off and went to Europe and just hitchhiked and lived a year like in those days of $5 a day when you could just live on nothing. And that was a great experience. And then when I came back, I thought, I have to get a job. So I went back and got a teaching credential. And then I taught for a while. And I taught in Marin and in Tracy.
Huh.
And then I came back and got a master's in psychology and teaching. There was sort of an in-school counseling and also out of school. I could work in private in the community.
An acronym, PSA, something.
Marriage, family, child at the time.
Interesting. So did you work in the school system with that as well? And
I did some work in the schools, but then I eventually worked with a team and we put together a nonprofit counseling organization in Arcata called Options.
Kind of remember that.
So we worked with individuals and groups and families and did a lot of programs. Eventually, a lot of them around job training and so forth.
Kind of random question. Were you part of Manila West Haven Parent Council? Did you ever?
No, I wasn't.
Piece of that?
No.
That was kind of a big deal.
Good people is a very big deal.
In the day, right?
Yeah.
Worked under that in the rec program in Trinidad. I took over for Olga Loya.
Oh, yeah. Olga, fabulous Olga.
Immediately got 2 kids injured the first summer. It was amazing. On my watch, one had a tooth knocked out by a mop bucket and the other one had one of those wall bench lunch benches fall on him. And I didn't do it. And to find out that the organization didn't have any liability insurance.
Dear. Oh, my gosh.
Wait, we have no insurance. What?
That's how you find out these horrible.
And then they had to cover all 25 rural rec programs. Eventually, they figured it out. Other story.
Yeah. No, your question just makes me want to say, too, that if somebody were to look at my resume, they would think I'm just completely a mad scramble.
You're all over?
I'm all over the place. It would be hard to explain. But for me, there's a thread. It's always a thread about what are the possibilities for people? How can I encourage them to do what they want to do, whether it was in counseling or in teaching in the classroom? I love teaching. I really did. I could imagine still doing it. And and my business was, I had no plan to own a business. That was not what I cared about, but I cared about promoting our local arts and manufacturers and creating jobs that would be fun. So that was my goal.
A lot of boxes, right?
Yeah, that was my goal. And so being on the council and being on the board was similar. It was more about community and how do you bring people together to solve problems. So for me, there's that thread that doesn't necessarily make sense on the surface.
So you were there with Victor Green in West Chesbro in those days?
I was.
Wow. And now Victor's our guy at In-N-Out Burger.
He is.
He's amazing.
I went down there and visited him.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Did he recognize you?
I had, we'd gotten all of our old council members together for an event in Arcata. Oh, and by the way, you know what I've just done? This is I almost forgot about it because it's a linear thing, but it hasn't happened yet. I got all the old supervisors that I could find to go to dinner together at the end of this month. So I better start paying attention to the date.
So Bonnie Gould?
Bonnie Neely. Yes. And, Wesley and John Woolley and they're from up and down Cliff Glendenin and Eric Headland. I mean, there's 12 of us.
Eric Headland? How about that?
Names that some people were going to get together and sit around a table and talk about.
That'd be fun.
And Republicans and Democrats. We're not all on the same party line.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how everybody's doing.
Yeah, I see John once in a while down at the Carter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tried to get Anna Sparks.
Is she living?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah. She was living in Mexico for a number of years.
How about that?
And
Sweet.
Which I thought was kind of interesting because she was the sort of all-American gal. And then she left the country.
The food's pretty good.
Yeah. But I think she's in Oregon or somewhere up there. And I see her every now and then. We worked together, actually, in a restaurant in Trinidad.
Really?
Which was really great.
Seascape or the other one?
Seascape. Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Yep. That was when I first met Anna and worked with her. And then we were on the board together.
Right.
And we were both probably from that frugal group. So just as a great example of how we were different politically, but we always traveled together and shared a room together.
And we're frugal.
And so we could save the county money. So we didn't each have our own room.
I like it.
Yep.
I love the fact that she's still around. She has Anna Sparks Way, by the way, a street.
She does. Yeah. No.
Saying.
No. Yeah. Right.
So 3 things you're proud of. I'm gonna hit you with some personal ones here. Got your resume. It's pretty amazing. We'll come back. But 3 things that you're really proud of that you've done.
That is the weirdest question. I saw that on your list. I, I think partly because of, my background,
Mhm.
it's not a word I use
Maybe proud would be
or think about.
could
I'm trying to think.
rephrase it. 3 things that you like that you've done in your life.
Well, I've probably talked about a lot of those things. Well, you know what? What I'm doing this afternoon is I'm actually playing in a concert. I love playing music. I don't like performing.
Oh, you have your violin here.
I do have my violin. I'm not getting it out. But
Wait, look, folks.
I know it's not very far away because it's too hot in my car. But I don't like to perform, but I love to play music with people.
Nice.
And the really amazing part that happened during the pandemic was because my garage was already in the process of being converted into a good room for such things. I've been meeting with people for the last 2 to 3 years in my garage. I play duets, trios, quartets.
I think I heard that.
Yeah.
Somebody
and we
said
play nearly every day just for fun. We read different music every day. There's so much music out there. It's not like you have to just stick with 1 or 2 things and get really good at it.
Endless, right?
Which I would probably just drop out of the group if that were the case. I like the variety and I like playing with people. And I see it as doing no harm. So I'd say that's something. If I had to be proud of something, that would be one of those things.
I like that. Kind of like, what's Daryl Hall and John Oates, the Hall and Oates, Daryl's Place? You ever seen that? They have a barn up in upstate somewhere.
Yeah.
And they have people, I don't think they just drop in. It's produced, but pretty amazing. Some of the guys that they just jam, they play.
Yeah. There's great little snippets everywhere, all over the country, all over the world. This is really common in Europe. Chamber music is just what people did. And when I was a child, my parents had groups in their home to play. So that's not unusual in that regard, but they performed.
So is it open invite to show up in the afternoons or
You
whatever?
mean if you were walking by the neighborhood, you could come and listen?
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, when people couldn't go to concerts and recitals, I would let more people know, and they would come and sit in the garden.
That's cool.
And listen.
And you're in Trinidad?
No, it's in Eureka.
You're in Eureka. That's right. You live
I'm in
Eureka.
Eureka, L Street. Right. I'm not far from here.
But you were raised where the folks live in Arcata?
I was born in Arcata, lived there till I was, actually in high school, my parents moved to Trinidad, which was a big deal then.
Right.
It wasn't like moving to Vienna, but it was.
No, yeah.
It was a 45-minute drive then.
Right.
Between Arcata and Trinidad. And it was truly a fishing village.
Oh,
so I left all of my friends in Arcata. And at that time, Arcata had a split session. I went to school from 12 to 5 with the kids from McKinleyville North to Oric. And the Arcata kids went to school from 7 in the morning to noon.
Before there was back high.
So we were separated. Yeah. So I left my friends. So let's talk about feeling like an outsider. So I started with a whole new group of friends.
Yeah.
As a
North County guys and gals.
Yeah.
Remember, they always used to wear shorts to Mac High. When I was a rec leader.
Oh, really? They wore shorts? That was the
Trinidad,
distinction?
all the cool kids wore shorts in the winter and a down vest because it's freezing. But you had to have the shorts because you were cool.
No, when I was riding the bus with them, they had frogs and snakes.
Oh.
So it was like another part of the adjustment.
Part of that journey.
Of riding the bus with kids from Oric.
So now you're doing concerts that you produced. Well, you started the Trinidad event, right?
Oh, the Trinidad Bay Art and Music Festival, yes.
Yeah. How many years has that run?
It's about the 6th year.
Wow.
And it's based on some of those same principles that I was talking about. One of the things I love about Humboldt County that a lot of people don't understand, even people who live here, and certainly people from the outside, don't know how many fabulously talented people we have here. We have incredible artists and writers and musicians. And of course, now people know Sarah Bareilles. She was born here and is a megastar.
Sure.
But there are others like Jenny Scheinman and many others who are just so talented and were raised here that still live here and travel to do gigs elsewhere. And the other part that fascinates me that I think a lot of people don't really know about is all of the diverse industry.
Oh, yeah.
that's hidden away because the products are exported out of the area. People know about Haliashi, but does everybody know about Hilliard lamps?
Tell us more about some of your
My
top of mind ones.
favorites? Are you kidding me? Well,
Sure.
Hilliard lamps are stunning, and they're in all the sorts of mega bars and casinos throughout the country and outside of the country. I don't have one. They're kind of pricey.
Are they up in Arcata?
They're in Arcata. Beautiful glass lamps. Of course, most people knew about Yakima, which is
Sure.
no longer in its same form, and Fire and Light.
Sure.
And a lot of these were started in garages.
Right.
I mean, Haliashi and Holly and Paul started in a garage. And I love that marriage between sort of the technology and the arts and the potential for job creation when those two parts come together.
Yeah.
And I have a list of about 45 businesses like that.
Marimba One.
Marimba One,
Steve Cole.
number one marimba in the world. I mean, those marimbas are in every major symphony. I'm glad you reminded me. How could I have forgotten that? And we've had banjo makers and guitar makers.
Wildwood guitars.
It goes the list. A lot of jewelers, a lot of really talented people who, because they want to live in Humboldt, have had to create their own situation and their own jobs. And I think that's, as crazy as it sounds, that's why I sometimes think of Manhattan and Arcata as having some similarities. If you're going to live in a place like Manhattan, you have to fight to get what you want.
Right.
And in a different way, but still similarly here in Humboldt, if you want to stay here, and
you got to fight.
You have to really be creative and clever and resourceful.
And work your ass off.
Yeah. And you
hustle,
work hard and you are a problem solver on the edge of your seat. Marimba One is very successful. They're still creating new instruments. They aren't going to stop just because they have one success that everybody loves. And that has to be true for people like Holly and Paul, too. They can't just keep making the same jewelry.
Oh.
And we have
innovate.
hot nuts, and it just goes on and on. This is a subject you should actually.
What's the cookie guy with the chocolate and coconut?
Oh, you mean the one that's in every market?
Everywhere.
Whole Foods.
It's super successful.
Well, I can't remember this name because they're the thing that everybody has to have.
Larapin dill sauce.
Well, Larapin dill sauce.
There you go.
And
their barbecue's
the Tomaso sauce. There's a lot of food industry that's developed, a lot of really interesting things.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, I'm one of those people who believes if you have an idea that you really believe in and you're committed to, money is not a problem.
Right.
That will not
follow.
stop that from happening. You can figure this out.
Yeah.
So that's what I loved about doing the workshops. I used to do a workshop for people who were starting their own business and finding jobs and things like that. And because I really believe in the importance of knowing what it is you want, what your goal is, and not just agreeing to take anything, you will save yourself and everybody else a lot of trouble by going for that.
I love it.
And taking the steps to get there.
Which is the hard work.
It is the hard work.
So I'm going to ask you your question. So I'm not campaigning. I'm not coming to your door, but I am coming to your microphone door. What do you like about Humboldt? You just mentioned a couple of things, but what do you like? What would you like to see? I don't know, change or different, or how do you see the future? And no one has a crystal ball, but maybe you do. I don't know.
No, I don't. I'm continually curious about the possibilities, and I'm also a bit cautious because I've seen what's happened in other parts of California that have been often destroyed by too much of a good thing. I mentioned Carmel earlier. My grandparents were from Carmel. People from Carmel don't go to Carmel anymore.
Right.
It's
too much.
It's like Disneyland.
Yeah, it's overrun.
It's still kind of an interesting place to visit as a tourist, but it's sort of like whenever I see any articles that say the 10 best places to visit anywhere, I know those are places to never go.
Never go.
Because with so much streaming and possibility of understanding what those 10 places are, it's like what's happened to Venice and Dubrovnik. And it's really, to me, it's very, or Mendocino, Carmel. I mean, it's a really mixed bag. And what I love about Humboldt is we haven't done that yet.
It's not Napa Valley.
No.
Yeah.
And we still have messes, and we still have things that don't work, and we still have what a lot of people consider, including myself, Broadway, which is an eyesore for the most part. I mean, how many billboards and crazy, cyclone fences can you build on a single
Empty
road?
lots and
It's
weird.
just so uninviting and unappealing. And I sort of now and then when I'm being really sarcastic, I think of it as a prophylactic because anybody driving through, if they don't turn off of that, they're going to think this place is
That's what it is.
no place to stay.
Yeah.
And so when people come, I'm always saying, you need to be sure to turn to the right or the left.
Come into Old
Off
Town.
of there, go to Old Town, go through Old Town, get to the bay, or turn inward and look at the incredible architecture and the diversity of the construction over 100 years. There's really interesting bungalows and Victorians and beautiful landscaping and even the alleys. I mean, there's really fun, inviting spots in Eureka and in Humboldt County. And of course, in Arcata, there's the marsh, and in McKinleyville, there's the Hammond Trail.
Don't forget the Hammond Trail.
And then there are the beaches, and there's Trinidad and Ferndale. I mean, there's really so many beautiful possibilities, and we don't wait in line.
Rarely.
Very rarely do we wait in line, and we don't have a problem parking. There's
maybe for a concert.
Excess of parking again, maybe for a concert.
Yeah.
I mean, even for Sarah Bareilles, people, 17,000 people showed up on the waterfront?
Walked right in.
But people walked. They're smart enough around here to know you don't have to drive your your car right down in front of the concert. It's like nuts.
Yeah, we walked about a half mile. It was great.
People don't drive in Manhattan either.
Right.
So
they walk.
So yeah, people walk. If it's an exciting place to be, people will figure out how to get there. And they don't need to drive and they don't need to park. And so I think to get back to your question a bit is I think it's important for us not to overlook the natural resources and the diversity of the community and not decide that any one thing is going to be our saving grace.
Right.
And so it's a little worrisome when, as an example, when I was on the Arcata City Council, we did nothing to encourage Hewlett-Packard to come here.
Right.
Because they
were looking, right?
And we can see what happened in San Francisco. San Francisco's right now really in deep trouble because they put everything into one focus. And so when those tech industries and those offices left, now it filters right into the restaurants and bars and the clothing stores and the other any kind of store. They're really suffering because there's nobody living there in the core of San Francisco.
Right.
The neighborhoods are still great because they're diverse.
Right.
Different kinds of people, different markets, different restaurants, different shops. So for me, that's a really sober warning to not just think we're going to be any one thing.
It's not just the Bay or the Port. It's not cannabis. We know that.
No, that certainly was a bad idea.
Boom and bust, right?
Yeah. I mean, most people would have understood that from the beginning.
Yeah.
I used to say, really, are we going to have a hairdresser on every corner or a pig farm in every backyard? You just can't let people just do exactly what they want every inch of the land that remains, or you end up with a disaster in the end.
Yeah.
So that's why we have some regulations and we have community process to decide what's appropriate or not.
Sheriff Hansel was here and he said 1 in 10 farms are licensed and there's some anarchy up in the hills, especially with the environment.
Well, we don't. That's a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic.
How about this? Have you, if you had to do one or two things over, what would you do? Over, or I don't want to frame it as a regret because that's almost like too hard of a word. But if you had a revision in something you did, what would you do different?
That's another hard question because if I do have regrets, I think I try to let go of them pretty quickly. I've certainly made a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
I make mistakes. I probably made several today. Do you know we make like 30,000 decisions a day?
I'm feeling it after vacation coming back. I'm just
it's like
shattered.
We're making decisions all the time. Most of them are so small, like whether am I going to drink another swallow of water or not.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are bigger, and a lot of them end up being not really great decisions.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there are some that I made that were not good. Oh, I can think of one right now. Okay, I just started taking ballet lessons.
Oh.
That's crazy. I'm loving it, and I have a bit of regret that I stopped doing it. I stopped playing the violin for 20 years because I was doing politics. I don't really have a regret about that because I was doing community work, and that was important to me, and I loved it. And then I could pick up my violin, and I wasn't any better, but I wasn't any worse. I could still play.
Yeah.
But the thing about dance or anything physical is your body changes.
Your body's
and
totally
so now
not
I'm just
cooperating.
trying to figure out how to get in and out of my car and without
Stretch in the morning.
looking like I'm going to fall over when I step on the curb. So I love the class. I have the most amazing teacher, and she actually practices all the things I believe in. She's very encouraging. She's very creative. She has really good ideas, and all of her dance ideas apply to life in general.
Nice.
So it's like the best time I spend in a teaching situation than I have probably since elementary school.
So is it a workout?
Yeah, it is. I mean, for me it is. It wouldn't be probably for you or your kids.
Oh, it would be.
But it's a good thing that I'm glad I'm doing it, and I will keep doing it. So there is that bit of a regret that if I kept dancing, actually since I was 12, I wouldn't be performing, but I'd be in better shape.
Right. I wish I would have learned Spanish growing up in San Diego.
Yeah.
Took the classes 10 times and dipped out.
Well, if you start on the language path, I wish I'd learned more French, and I wish I'd learned other languages. I love languages, but I've been distracted by other things.
There is that. So, hey, this is the part of our show where I ring a bell. Ready?
Oh, good. What does that mean? We're done.
Bonus round.
Oh.
Ready? This is where I ask you your favorite things in Humboldt. You've already kind of outed some of those, but what's your it's tricky because you have a lot of relationships, so I don't want to jeopardize that. But if you go out to eat in its unlimited budget, where do you go to eat tonight?
You really want to know?
Heck yeah.
Well, just off the top of my head, it would be Brick and Fire.
Okay.
If I could only go one place.
Only one. Where would you go for a drink?
The Carter.
Good call.
It's a good place for a conversation.
Where would you go for a concert?
And I love the bartender. A concert?
Oh, do you like Ian?
Oh my God, Ian Root is amazing.
The bald.
You need to talk to him.
He's a great guy.
Because I'd like to learn more about him, and he doesn't say much.
He's kind of hard to understand too.
Well,
maybe it's me.
I think it's intentional.
He talks really fast.
He talks really fast.
Yeah. Let's do that, Ian. That sounds great.
That's
Perfect.
right. Yeah.
Take care of me.
No, and I just have to say that my other favorite place, which I think is another hidden resource, believe it or not, is the marina.
Oh yeah, Cafe Marina or the marina?
Yeah, the Cafe Marina, because you can sit right on the water, or Gills, you can sit right on the water. I mean, how many people know that? Right. Just like it's minutes away from all of us.
Moonstone Grill,
yeah.
But it's a little bit
the
more.
View.
Yeah, the view is
view.
Magical.
Which I think has to do with how we think and see the world. When you have that infinite view of the Pacific, the possibilities are unlimited. It's a great metaphor for possibilities.
Yeah, they have a nice happy hour at 4:30 or something, and there's 14 seats, and all the Trinidad guys are there first. But beautiful view.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. I got some more questions. So where do you go for coffee?
First thing in the morning, 5:30 a.m., my coffee pot.
Your coffee?
My espresso.
If you had to go out for coffee, maybe that's a better way to frame it.
Well, I would say probably my most common place to meet people is Brio.
Okay.
Right on the plaza.
Delicious, yeah. What about a hike? If you're going to go for a hike today, where do you go?
Do I just have one?
You could do two.
Hickshari Trail, the trail along the bay. Used to be the Arcata Marsh. Now that I live in Eureka, I love to go down the bay.
It goes all the way down to
in Hickshari. And I walk with my partner every single morning at 8:30 through the neighborhoods.
Nice.
Every single day. I love walking through the neighborhoods, seeing people's landscaping and alleys, fences, architecture. Right now, people are getting new roofs and solar systems.
Stuff's happening.
Endless.
It's not raining.
No, it's not raining, and people are busy fixing things up.
Nice. So what if you have a legacy, what would you like it to be? And I know it's not your name on a bench.
What popped into my head is one of my favorite metaphors is spitting in the soup.
Ah.
It's
Tell me what that one is. I kind of know.
It sounds kind of unpleasant, but it's. I think it goes back to my old counseling training in therapy, but it applies really to everything. It really was great in politics. Is that if you have a bit of information or a question that you can throw into the conversation or the mix, that's whatever the dialogue is,
right?
Whoever's listening or paying attention will not be able to get that out of the soup. It doesn't matter if you freeze the soup, boil the soup, add more spices or whatever, the spit is still in the soup.
Wow.
And I love that metaphor because sometimes, like, especially if you're like one vote out of 5, which I was on the Board of Soups, I would not necessarily have things go my way, but I could insert something, ask a question, state something. Did you know that? That people don't walk by parking lots to shop. They prefer to walk by stores and where there's activity. And then, okay, so that's there.
You just spit in the soup.
That's you're spitting in the soup.
Yeah.
And so if
Plant
I
that seed.
have anything, I would hope that I've shared that now with you.
I like that.
So you can share that with your kids. And we don't know. One of the things I know for sure is we don't know where any of these ideas come from. We pass them on. I play music that was written over 200 years ago. I play on an instrument that's over 100 years old.
Wow.
I don't know who played it before me or who will play it after me. I know I am this speck that will only be here. That's why naming a bench seems so silly. It's not what's important.
It's a pretty quick life we live.
Making sure the path is there or that the marsh is there is important.
So if I promise not to ask you to play the violin, could you pull it out? Could we look at it?
You really want to look at the violin?
I'd love to see it. You said it's 100 years old.
It'll make a lot of, well, it looks just like any other violin.
Go for it.
Are you serious?
Would you mind?
No, I'm happy to
Okay, cool.
pull out my violin.
Maybe she'll actually play it. No, wait, I didn't ask. Not going to ask.
But look at my case.
Look at that case. Woo. That's fancy. That thing's not going to get damaged anywhere. So it's 100 years old?
Unless you drive over it. Well, my house is 100 years old.
Did you ever know Gary Crone that played in the Lighthouse Band?
No.
He was the fiddle player?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. How is anybody going to see this? Where are we? Does this matter?
It's
I
right
don't
here.
even know.
Yeah, no, you're right in camera shot.
Ta-da!
Look, it's a violin.
This is where it goes. Ta-da! The bow.
Very nice.
You know there's 72 pieces of wood in this?
Did not know that.
Is that the weirdest thing?
Oh, it's craftsmanship.
Even I didn't know that until recently when I was doing some research. Yeah, it's very elaborate, complicated, and tough. This is tough. It's been around for a long time.
It could stand the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody said violins and boats are interesting because the engineering of the curvature of the wood. It has a name where it's not a box. It's a work of art.
Yep, it is.
Very cool. So going forward, mission, passion, focus. What's on your docket? I guess you're going to play some more music today. But going forward beyond that, are you doing any other production of shows or festivals or?
At 81, I'm happy to get up every morning. That's always a good sign.
It's good
when I wake up. And I know, well, one thing I'm looking forward to, this is a crazy thing I started doing that I never thought I would do. But a friend of mine, Patsy Gibbons, who's a writer and an editor and a big collector of books, met with me a while ago and said I should write every morning.
Oh.
So I'm one of those people who's sidetracked by emails. I do not turn on my computer or look at my emails until I have written.
Good.
So I get up and I go into a corner of my house, look out the window, and write on a yellow pad with a pen. I can't type it or dictate it. She wants me to just write it. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'll get carpal tunnel and it'll affect my playing. And the truth is, I am now fairly addicted to it.
Wow.
I love it. I do it every morning.
So whatever just comes to mind, free flow.
Yeah. And it's actually helped me with this because
I love it.
I've been thinking about some of these things. I started with what I could remember earliest memories. And right now I'm into college now.
Okay.
So I have no idea what I'll do with this when I'm done.
Yeah.
My coach, Patsy, thinks I'm going to have it transcribed and typed, and I'm not sure that I would do that. But anyway, it's been good for me to do.
Yeah.
So I will keep doing that, and I will wake up every morning and do that as long as I can.
I'm inspired because I did 105 days of writing.
Yes.
I stopped about 45 days ago, and I haven't picked it up. I've done it sporadically, and you're the second person today that said, you just got to do it. You just go do it.
Well, I remember hearing this about artists and writers and composers.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing they always say is you just have to do it.
Yeah. And of course, my writing turned into podcasting because that was the logical jump for me.
Yeah.
And so far, so good. It's really interesting. Yeah, I like writing, and I like to think I write good. And then when you get the coach that says, that's kind of light, you go, oh, wait, I was really proud of that. But I was writing for writing's sake, for my own sake. So whether it's ever published,
well, no, it's good for your brain.
I think it is really good. And the other thing I've done is yoga in the morning. Paul DeMarc, the musician.
There we are, yeah.
Because I've done yoga with Adrienne for 20 years, Scott. I'm going, well, he's a cool guy, and if I could do that. And so yoga every morning. And the other thing is taking a walk after every meal.
That's a good idea.
Just go, burp, fart, deal with it. And isn't it the sugar, the sugar? It's the I was Joni always telling you, it's where your blood sugar, glucose conversion.
Oh, okay.
There's a name for it.
Oh, well, I might have to add that to my repertoire. But I want to say one thing, because if anybody's listening, the one thing I love is I love junkers and fixing them up. I've sort of throughout my life, my first house was falling down. I got it for $300, and
wow,
it was like, a big ordeal. But because of all the things I said earlier about asking questions and asking for help, I was able to pull it off.
Right.
But right now there's a church, and there's probably more than one building like this in our community that could be resurrected. And there's one in my neighborhood that in my mind, I would love to figure out how to buy it and turn it into an art and performance center. Just a small one.
Where's this at?
It's near the water tower. And it's been vacant for several years, and it's got 4 little units on the side, and it's got a nice garden, so you could have a little coffee bistro in there.
Yeah.
And then it's got a nice little recital hall.
I Street or J?
It's between K and L, I think, sort of in there. But it's like this perfect opportunity for a little community center. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I won't do that, but someone out there could.
Plant a seed.
Yeah.
Did you just spit in the soup?
Something like that.
I like that. I think that'd be a great development. So, any parting shots? Anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to talk about yet?
It's funny. I just looked down at my notes, which I haven't done. It just said apple seeds on here.
Apple seeds.
Because
I meant to ask you about the apple seeds.
Yes, you did?
Go ahead.
Okay. Is that my father came from a heritage in Switzerland of planting apple trees, and his family brought that here. And everywhere he went, he planted trees, including apple trees. And every time somebody got married, had an anniversary or a birthday, my parents gave apple trees. And their argument was everybody has a silver platter and crystal. So, but an apple tree, if you
just
plant
like a little
it,
starter?
Yeah, or a starter, or, a 5-year-old tree.
Yeah.
And then it means you have apples, and then whoever comes after you has apples.
I like it.
And so I have apples in my yard.
Right.
And apple juice and apple pie and stuff like that. And it's like somebody will have those apples
for a
after
long time.
me.
Yeah.
So maybe that's my legacy. The apple seeds have come through my whole family into
legacy.
People I don't know.
I like it. Yeah. How do you like them apples?
Yeah. There you go.
Pretty good. Julie, thanks for being here.
Good job.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And look forward to following you and your music. Maybe Joni and I could stop by sometime and
sure
listen in. That would be cool.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate you.
Thank you.